Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we know people are joining us from different parts of the world. My name is Pradeep Nayak. I'm at the University of Waterloo. I'm also part of the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership for Small-Scale Fisheries. I will be hosting the talk today. I will do a few rounds of introduction first before I hand it over to our speaker today. First, I will introduce the V2V Global Partnership, and then I will introduce the thematic webinar series, and then I will introduce our speaker, and then we will listen to the talk of today. So the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership is a transdisciplinary research, knowledge, and action network with over 100 members from Africa, Asia, Canada, and internationally. The goal of the global partnership is to support small-scale fisheries in their transition from vulnerability to viability. Our focus is on four aspects of small-scale fisheries. One is co-creating and co-producing the knowledge that can be effective in achieving the transition from vulnerability to viability. Also, to focus on creating a database or repository in the form of an information system. The third goal is to develop transdisciplinary capacity that can be helpful in the transition process. And the fourth is synthesizing all the co-produced knowledge in a way that is effective for governance and of small-scale fisheries and policy implementations. The V2V Global Partnership aims to identify the diverse factors and conditions contributing to the vulnerability of small-scale fisheries and engage collaboratively with small-scale fisher communities and other key NGO, government, and civil society and university partners to enhance small-scale fisheries viability. We are conducting transdisciplinary, community-engaged research in 6 countries in Asia. That includes Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, and 6 countries in Africa that includes Ghana, Malawi, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tanzania. In doing so, the V2V Global Partnership brings people and organizations together across physical, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries through a shared interest in addressing global change impacts on small-scale fisheries. The V2V thematic webinar series is an initiative of the V2V Global Partnership to facilitate and generate high-level discussions on vulnerability and viability themes and topics within the context of small-scale fisheries. The goal is to feature academics, representatives of governments and intergovernmental organizations, practitioners, and members of civil society who have made significant contributions to the theoretical, the practical, and the policy aspects of small-scale fisheries, both locally and globally. V2V thematic webinar series takes place on the last Friday of every month, and this month is a bit different because we are meeting on a Saturday, and it will continue to be so during the year 2023. The series is available internationally through live streaming on YouTube. Details regarding the monthly webinars, including speakers, the top topics and titles of the talk, and links to webinar platform are available on our web page, which is www.v2vglobalpartnership.org. Today's webinar is the 7th in the series of V2V thematic webinars planned for the year 2023, and the 31st since January 2021, when it all started. And it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Evans Kwasi Arizi as our distinguished speaker today. Dr. Evans Kwasi Arizi is a fisheries scientist specializing in fish stock assessment, dynamics, and oceanography. He's currently a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Dr. Arizi holds a PhD in biological and environmental sciences from the University of Rhode Island in the USA, where he focused his dissertation work, research work on the sustainable management of Sardinella fishery in Ghana. This is an area of research that Dr. Arizi has continued to engage till today, as he increasingly focuses on small pelagic resources and advocates for their sustainability. Dr. Arizi has published extensively on this topic, including how protection of small pelagic fish has tremendous potential for building strong and viable small-scale fisheries. Overall, Dr. Evans Arizi's research focuses on using biological characteristics of aquatic organisms for sustainable aquatic ecosystem management that aligns really with UN SDG, or Sustainable Development Goal 14. He is also a member of the Scientific and Technical Committee of the Fisheries Commission in Ghana. I'm also very proud to say that Dr. Arizi is an active member and a co-investigator of the V2V Global Partnership in its goal to support transition of small-scale fisheries from vulnerability to viability. It is my honor to invite Dr. Evans Kwasi Arizi to deliver today's talk for the V2V thematic webinar series July 2023. And the title of his talk will be The Role of Sustainable Fisheries in Supporting Vulnerability to Viability Transition. Thank you very much, Dr. Arizi, for making time to give this talk today. And the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Professor Pratik Nayak. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that. And I am also grateful for giving me such a platform to give a talk. Just a couple of minutes. But before then, before I show my slides, I want to express my warm greetings to all of you online. I appreciate your time for attending this presentation. Let me show my slide quickly. Okay, I believe my title slide is showing. So today, I am going to give a talk on the topic, the role of sustainable fisheries in supporting vulnerability to viability transition. And this is the outline of the presentation. I want to begin my talk by defining what a fishery is. A fishery is just an interaction among fish, its or their environment, the people catching and handling the fish. To further explain this, I have this simple Venn diagram to illustrate what a fishery is about. The first oval is represented by fish. The second oval is represented by the people. And then the third is environment. This environment is simply the aquatic environment where the fish dwell. Now, when you have all these three components interacting, they give rise to what is called a fishery. So you have a fishery that is captured right in the middle, the point of intersection, representing the interaction among all these three components. This shows that when you have an aquatic system and then it has fish and no exploitation is taking place, you cannot talk about the existence of a fishery in such environment. And so it is quite clear that for a fishery to exist, there should be an interaction among all these three components. I have this picture to further illustrate what a fishery is about. So if you look at the picture, it was a picture that was taken here in Ghana. It shows a typical artisanal fishery. And here you can see some canoes. Now, one of the canoes, the fishers have brought their catch, simply put, the landings. And you have people who have gone in there to patronize the catch that have been brought to shore. And so you can see the water body where the fish dwell, the habitat of the fish. And then you have people also interacting with the fish. And so all the three components are captured here. And that is why this is a typical fishery. I cannot do this presentation without highlighting the importance of fisheries. As a matter of fact, the importance of fishery cannot be overemphasized. Fisheries provide us with food, and there is a picture that is showing a lady is gladly enjoying fish. Okay, and we are all aware that in our homes, we eat fish. Fisheries also provide us with employment. I brought this picture to show you the kind of work that some fishers are doing. And this one was also taken right here in Ghana. It is a typical beach seine fishery. So the people there are trying to bring their catch to the shore. They are hauling the net with the expectation that they will get some catch to sell. And so they are working. Fisheries also provide us with income. The third picture is speaking to that. You can see that there's a woman who is busily selling fish, and a man and a woman. A man is trying to give money to the seller. And this is a clear indication that fisheries provide us with income. It is important to note that a fishery that is not regulated, that is not properly managed, that is unmanaged, let me put it this way, there could be biological, economic, and social consequences. And these consequences can be undesirable if the proper measures are not put in place to manage the fisheries. And so because of that, government, NGOs, other authorities, they intervene to manage fisheries so as to ensure that fishing communities, fishers, fishery stakeholders do not experience such biological, economic, and social consequences. If you look at V2V, global partnership, we are towing in that line, trying to make sure that fisheries around the world, those whose livelihood depends on the fishery, will not have their livelihoods in danger. I have this diagram to explain what is meant by unsustainable fishery, or what unsustainable fishery is about. Right in the middle, the right angle represented by fish stock. Assuming this is the stock. Now on your right, you have two red arrows. They represent removers from the stock. And the first red arrow represents those fish that die through fishing. And then you have those that die through natural means. It could be old age, it could be due to predation, it could be due to even diseases. And then on your left, you have two green arrows, and they represent recruitment into the stock through reproduction. Now, when the fish reproduce, it is expected that the young ones will grow to become adult, to also reproduce, to add up to the stock. In a case where the removers are more than those that are recruited into the stock, the fish stock becomes unsustainable. And in that instance, when fishers go to sea, they come back, it's likely that they will come back with low catch, low profit, and low income. In the worst case, they can come back with nothing, no catch, and that will lead to no profit and apparently no income. When such a situation exists, this is going to lead the fishers into what is called, or fishing communities into what is called hardship. And so in such an instance, the situation can be described as vulnerability. It is in the state of vulnerability. The fishers are vulnerable. The fish stocks, they are also vulnerable. Now, let's look at sustainable fishery. Now, the opposite of unsustainable fishery is sustainable fishery. And this is a diagram to illustrate what a sustainable fishery is. Just like what I explained earlier, but this time around, the sign, that's a greater sign, has changed. It was less than, now it's greater than. Now, if you look at this diagram, now on your right, the red arrows, you realize that if you look at the green one, what it means is that there is more recruitment. More fish are being recruited into the stock, the existing stock, through reproduction. They are allowed to grow, they become adult, they also reproduce to replenish what is being lost. And so when the recruitment is greater than removal, the fish becomes sustainable. There's another situation too, where the recruitment is equal to removal. In that instance, it can also be described as sustainable, but it's a bit risky. The situation can change all of a sudden. And so it is preferable that the recruitment becomes all the more greater than removals. Under such a situation, you expect that the fish stock becomes sustainable and there will be moderate catch, there will be moderate profit, moderate income. The best case scenario, there will be high catch, there will be high profit, and there will be high income. So such a situation can be put into the context of viability. This is the kind of fishery that we are all looking for, not the previous slide, what was shown on the previous slide, but this is the kind of fishery that we are all seeking to achieve. I was curious to know countries whose fisheries are sustainable. And through my search, I came across a publication. It was by Oceanography, and that was reported in 2018. According to Oceanography, these are the countries which have sustainable fisheries, or whose fisheries are sustainable. We are talking about Barbados, Iceland, Iceland, Norway, South Korea, and then Philippines. I think it's Philippines. I tried to, in fact, when I came across this, I was a bit curious, wanted to find out what are they doing differently that they are having sustainable fisheries, or they now have sustainable fisheries. What did they do differently? So I went further to look at the specific policies that they implemented. And so this table captures the policies that those countries implemented. And then, of course, some of the key benefits that they are deriving from the sustainable fisheries. I'll start by Barbados. I realized that they followed the FAO Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries. And for that code of conduct, the primary aim is to make sure that fish stocks or aquatic organisms are sustainably managed, and that fishing communities are deriving much benefit from such stocks, or let me say aquatic organisms. Okay, that's the primary thing. And for Barbados, as of now, they are making remarkable contributions to food security and also food quality. The native or the local marine species are also being protected. And for Iceland, these are specific policies that they put in place. They have what is called total allowable catch. And so for every year, they specify the amount of fish that should be taken from their water bodies, okay? And then they also have what is called the quota system. So fish companies or fish individuals, they are given catch quota, okay, so that they don't exceed the amount that ought to be taken from the system. They also have what is called closed season. So for specific periods, they make sure that fishing activities are suspended so that no fishing takes place. Now, having put all these measures in place, and I know that these are all not just the policies, but there are others that are also implemented in addition to the key ones that I have highlighted. Now, there's food security in Iceland, and there is also what is called food quality. The kind of fish they eat is of quality, not the poisonous one or the contaminated food or fish, but they can have healthy fish to eat. Norway is another country whose fisheries are sustainable. For them, they also have specified catch limits. So just like total allowable catch, they put a limit on the amount of fish that should be taken from the system. They have the daily one, the monthly one, and all that. They have specified all this in place. And because of that, they can now supply fish to the USA market. They are doing so well. And then Philippines, they have also instituted closed season. They have also created marine protected areas in their water bodies. And so because of that, today, they are proud to say that they have sustainable fisheries. And they have food, they have jobs in the fisheries sector. South Korea, just like Barbados, they are also following the FAO Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries. And they are also reaping the benefits. A job is secured in the fisheries sector, and then a supply of seafood to the citizens. So haven't said or haven't mentioned some of the policies. I thought it wise to delve into other policies that we can also ride on to sustain our fisheries. And it is important to note that sustainable fisheries management requires clear-cut objectives and then appropriate management strategies and actions. Okay, for you to come up with a sustainable fisheries management plan, you've got to make your points, your objectives clear. Your objectives have to be clear enough. And then you should also put in place the appropriate management strategies and actions. And these are some of the kinds of fisheries management strategies and actions. I prefer to refer to them as actions, not strategies per se, but actions. You have three main categories. You have the input controls, that's the effort control, and then you have output controls, that's the catch control. The fish that you bring out of our water bodies, there should be control on that. It's very, very important. And then you have what is called technical measures. All right, let me take you through one by one briefly. So for input controls, here you're talking about management of fishing efforts. The effort that the fishers put in place to harvest the fish has to be regulated, has to be managed. Otherwise, the fishers might do their own stuff, and that might go a long way to deplete our stocks. So there should be measures in place to regulate fishing efforts. And these are some of the specific actions. There should be a limit to the number, size, or power of boats. There should also be a limit to the number of fishers so that it will not lead to overcapacity in the fisheries sector. And then there should be a limit to the amount, size, and type of gear that the fishers use. And then the soaking time of gears should be regulated. Soaking time, you're talking about the duration within which a gear is submerged in the water body in an attempt to harvest fish. There should be a regulation. And then the period of fishing. Okay, if you look at trawl, the trawling that is done in the waters, what happens is that if a trawler trawls for a very long time, maybe about 2 hours and over, what will happen is that even if the trawlers or let me say the troll net, even if the mesh sizes are very small, because the net has caught a lot of fish, even the small ones might not even penetrate or have the chance to pass through the mesh size. So to keep on catching even juveniles. But if the period is limited, what will happen is that the young ones can easily pass through the mesh size or the mesh or the net, and that the bigger ones will be retained within a short possible time. So the period has to be regulated. It's very, very important. And the amount of fuel. Government can put measures in place to ensure that even the amount of fuel can detect the amount of effort that should be put in place to harvest fish. These are other forms of input controls. We are talking about the licensing system, where fishers are licensed. I'm talking about vessels, in quote. Vessels should be licensed before they can be used in our waters. And even fishing gears and all that, they should all be licensed before they can be used in our waters. So if you have a fishing crew, and if they do not have permits or licenses or concessions, they should not be allowed to operate in our waters. That will go a long way to regulate the fishing effort to some extent. And then you have effort quotas, even specific crews. There should be allocation of effort to them, okay? So that if they are to fish maybe 3 times within the week, then that is done. So that whoever goes beyond the 3-day period that is set will be penalized. Measures will be put in place to make sure those people, they will be paying penalties. Yeah, so here you're talking about amount of time for fishing, and that should be regulated. It could be per gear, it could be per vessel, per fisher, just as I explained earlier. And then you have vessel and gear restrictions. There should be restrictions to gear and then vessels. Talking about the vessel capacity, is it going to be very big to carry a lot of fish? All this should be regulated. The size should be detected. In fact, all these, normally, you get them right when you do research. When you do much research in the fishery sector, you have more answers to some of these as to what capacity of the vessel should be adopted and used by all. And that is why research is very important in fisheries. Let's talk about output controls. Here, you are talking about management of catch. The catch that we get from the environment, aquatic environment, our water bodies. The limit, there should be a limit to the catch, okay, so that we don't overexploit our stocks to the detriment of the fishes and even the fish stocks themselves. So here you're talking about actions that limit the weight of fish or the amount of fish that is taken from our water bodies. And we can talk about limits on tonnage of fish or the number of fish that may be taken from the fishery. Here I'm talking about the aquatic environment, let's say, within a specified period of time. And these are some of the examples. The total allowable catch should be set, and that should be revised depending on the biomass, the fish biomass that is in the system. And then you have individual quotas. Individual fishers will be given or should be given quotas, okay, so that when the limit is due, it ends there until another quota is set to them or for them. And then you have what is called individual transferable quotas. That is ITQ, okay, individual. Someone may decide that, well, this season I'm not going to fish because of maybe some constraints. And so I prefer to transfer my quota to another person. Okay, so such measures can be put in place. And then you have bag limits. There should be restrictions on the number of fish that may be brought to shore or landed in a day by either an individual or per vessel. Okay, should be a limit to that. Very, very, very important. And you cannot have this when there is open access fishery. Everybody will just do whatever he or, let me use he per se, because women doing fishing is rare. It's rare. Normally the women, they are interested in harvesting shellfish. That's handpicking. But talk about those fishers who go to sea. It is normally done by the men. Okay, so there should be a limit to what they bring to shore. And then you talk about limits on bycatch. Of course, when you are fishing, these non-target fish, they also move along with target fish or targeted fish. And so in an attempt to catch or exploit the targeted fish, you end up also catching unwanted fish that you do not want. And so, this bycatch, they also play a significant role. I'm talking about the individuals in the water body. Okay, these unwanted species, they also have a significant ecological role to play in there. And so if you get rid of them, it's going to cause problems to the ecosystem. They form part of the trophic system, okay, trophic system. And so if you get rid of them, there will be a problem. So there should be a limit to their catch. Let's look at some of the technical measures. Here you are talking about spatial closures. And typical examples are MPAs as marine protected areas. We're also talking about marine reserves. We are talking about no-take zones, okay, where certain areas, measures are put in place that fishing is highly prohibited. Nobody is allowed to go there to fish. And you should have such systems in place so that the spawners can use such a place to do their spawning. The young ones can be nursed there, and then they can grow to be recruited into the fishery at the fisheries grounds. They are talking about temporal closures, close season. That's where a certain period of time, no fishing is allowed. Fishing is suspended. Okay, there will be imposition of close season on fishing. So nobody should fish within a specified. In Ghana, we have it. As a matter of fact, there is close season which is in place. It's in place right now. And it is expected, the ban is expected to be lifted on 31st of this month, July. Okay, so after 31st, the fishers will be allowed to fish in our waters. It is still in its infancy. We are hoping that days ahead, some days will be added so that the Ghanaians will begin to see the real benefits of such close season. Okay, and then you have mesh size regulation, the kind of mesh or the type of nets that the fishers are using, the mesh size to be regulated, okay, so that the young ones should be allowed to grow to the adult stage so that they at least reproduce once in their lifetime before they are harvested. Okay, now I have some stuff to present to you. And I want to say that for the various actions that I've spoken about, or let me say strategies that I've spoken about, you can put them in place, but there are certain elements that need to complement those actions that you have put in place. I call them catalysts because when they are there, when they are in place, such management actions, strategies can work well. And a typical example is teamwork. There should be teamwork. In fact, those of the stakeholders within the fisheries sector, they should come together and work. If it's about getting a fisheries management plan, the stakeholders should all come together, judge your dialogue, and then come out with a policy. And it should be endorsed by all the stakeholders. So teamwork is very, very important. Change your behavior. It is expected that fishers will change their behavior, and it should be of proper behavior towards fisheries management, so that even when there are new measures, new policies, fishers, in as much as it's going to be beneficial to them in future, they should be able to buy into such policies, okay? So they should have good behavior. And then desirable attitudes, like there should be integrity, there should be responsibility. People should take responsibility, be in charge. There should be respect for laws, rules. Okay, whatever policies that are in place, they should abide by them. Then people should have the zeal. People should be zealous. They should have the zeal to make things better. Okay, that you improve our fishery, just as V2V global partnership. We are so eager to make sure that you help to revamp our fisheries all over the world, so that our brothers and sisters who are in the fishery sector can also have something to rely on from day to day. And then effective communication. There should be communication among the stakeholders, to the public. Whatever policies that are out should be well communicated to the stakeholders, all the stakeholders. Look at the close season. In Ghana, the close season, before it was implemented, it was communicated to the stakeholders. Okay, it will be very bad that the fishers will be there and all of a sudden we come out with a policy and say that today I'm going to close the sea to fishing. That is not good. There should be advanced communication and it should be communicated well. There should be political will to promote adequate enforcement and high compliance. And then there should be timely provision of relevant and adequate assets and logistics. Government should make sure that the logistics that are needed to manage our fisheries resources will be available, so that people will not get stranded in an attempt to manage our fish stocks or make contributions towards proper management of fisheries. And then the fisheries management plans that are drafted and are used as guides, okay, to manage our stocks. It should be done or should be drafted by all the stakeholders involved. As I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about teamwork, they should all come together, make sure that it is done by all. So I draw the curtain on my presentation. Thank you. I think I've spent a lot of time, and so I want to thank you so much for making time to attend the presentation. I will now take your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evans, for the detailed, overview of, what might constitute the various aspects of sustainable fisheries, especially in the context of Ghana. We will be receiving questions from YouTube, and then as they appear, I will start to read them out to you, and then you can respond to some of those questions. But in the meantime, I have a couple of questions or points that I would like to talk to you about. One of the areas is you really have a detailed list of different criteria. So the spatial, the technical, and then you also talked about a bit of behavioral aspects of what might constitute small sustainable fisheries. Is it possible to talk specifically to institutions and governance arrangements, at the local level and also at the policy level, that might contribute to sustainable fisheries, or what could be some of the institutions or institutional arrangement that could lay the foundation of small-scale the sustainable fisheries?
Okay. Talk about the local government, the role they should play to lay the foundation for fisheries management. I hope that is it. I think if you look at, I'll take Ghana for example. You have what is called chief fishermen. They represent the fishers in most cases, and they fall under these local assemblies. Okay, the local assemblies are supposed to take care of, they should work in harmony or in collaboration with chief fishermen to help to manage our fishery stocks. Now, in Ghana, if you look at the fish, let me say, these chief fishermen, they are claiming that the actions are not backed by law. So they're advocating that they should be recognized, they should be given recognition in the legal instruments in the context of fisheries, so that they can also help to bring some of these issues, those of the people who are involved in doing bad things, they can lead to make sure that such people are penalized. And so I expect the local assemblies to push for this, that they will make a case for these chief fishermen, that they are captured in the legal instruments. Okay, they will be given certain power so that they can also act in the interest of the government. I think, and then the Fisheries Commission, for example, they have representatives that are around, let me say, along the coast of Ghana, and from time to time, they interact with the fishers and they collect data with the intention that they want to collect data for management purposes. And so they also interact with them to help the fishery. I think that is what I can say. So the local assemblies can play a role. In fact, they have the capacity to do that. I mean, they have the mandate. Let me say they have the mandate to do that. So they should liaise with the fishers through the chief fishermen to help in that regard.
Thank you. I have a few questions now flowing in. I will read one by one, and then you could respond to those. So the first question is, I think, by Cornelia Nguyen from Mendes Maris, and the question is the closed season enforced both for the artisanal fleets and the industrial fleet?
Well, in Ghana, it is the case. It is the case. But as of now, the artisanal closed season is different from the industrial closed season, in the sense that it is assumed that the industrial fishers, they go to high seas, okay, and they are not found in our territorial waters. I mean, they go to high seas to fish, and so yes, they also observe closed season, but I think it's in October also. October, if Professor Dennis Aheto can help in that regard. I think it's October. But for the artisanal fishers, because they operate in the territorial waters, and July, but June, July, August, I think July, August, September, that is a period where the fishes spawn. And so because of that, the artisanal fishers are made to observe closes in such a period because it coincides with the spawning season, so that they don't catch the ripe adults that are ripe and ready to spawn. They don't really get rid of them from the system. So it is quite different. But the two sectors observe the closes here in Ghana. I don't know of other countries, but here in Ghana, the two sectors experience that. They observe that.
Thank you. The next question is by Idrisu Amadou. And Idris is asking, saying, thanks, Dr. Arizi, for the informative talk. You have discussed various formal fisheries management strategies and measures. Could you kindly highlight some of the traditional fisheries management measures as well?
Oh, okay. Well, so again, I'll be making much reference to Ghana, because I've not really been to other countries to know exactly what they are doing there. So I'm comfortable talking about Ghana. In Ghana, one of the traditional ways of managing our stocks is to institute certain, let me say, brief close seasons. Here in Ghana, for every week, okay, I mean, let me say every Tuesday, fishing is not permitted in most of the fishing communities. No fishing on Tuesdays, and it's also part of the close season thing. Okay, just like exemplary, just brief. If you come to my area on Thursdays, they don't also go fishing. Okay, and it's part of the traditional ways of managing our stocks. Okay, and they also have what is called co-management. I think a place like Pra, that area, they are trying to institute that, and One Beach, that area, where they will have a co-management that the people will come together and then collectively manage the fishery stocks. So for now, these are the measures put in place by the, traditional measures put in place to manage our stocks in Ghana. Thank you.
Thanks, Evans. Next question is by Dennis Frederick. The question is, for the case of mesh size regulation, what criteria are used to set a sustainable mesh size of a fishing net?
Oh, okay. Well, in fishery science, you do what is called selectivity studies. Okay, you do studies on selectivity. Once you get to know the selectivity, of course, it is tied to the length at sexual maturity or the age at sexual maturity. Once you get to know that, then the legal minimum size of fish that should be caught is then put in place. Of course, there's a formula to arrive at the specific mesh size that should be used. Talk about selection factor. There's a formula for that. There's a relationship. So once you know the size at sexual maturity, I mean, when you say maturity size, we are talking about the length at which 50% of the population is mature. Once you get to know that, you relate it to the mesh size, the appropriate mesh size that ought to be used. And then you get your mesh size, you get it computed. Yes.
Okay. Thanks again, Evans. The next question is by Binolia Petris Power. The question is, how does anthropogenic factors such as IUU play a role in unsustainable fisheries?
Well, from the name, IUU, it's not a good thing. You don't want it. Illegal, unreported, unregulated. You do not even want it. So it is a practice that should be abolished. That one will not lead us to a state of sustainability. And that is why you all have to crusade and fight against whatever is illegal should be taken out of the system. When stocks are caught, they should be reported so that fisheries scientists can come out with best estimates, okay? And then you should also put measures in place to regulate our fish stocks. That is what will help us to manage our stocks. But for IUU, it has nothing good to offer for us. So that is what I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I think you are correct. You know, the name itself, suggests, what's wrong with that and how it should be avoided.
Yeah.
The next question is by Hari Nutifafa Arden. And then Hari is asking, well done, Dr. Arizi, for the insightful presentation. Would you say the duration of Ghana's closed season regime is sufficient for a long-term transition into viability of the fisheries sector? So I think the question is basically with regards to closed season and the question of viability and the duration. Okay.
Frankly speaking, I will tackle this question by making reference to the PhD work I did. It was about closed season. And part of it, I used life history characteristics of the fish to do some simulations. And I got to know that the 1 month closure as it stands is not enough to revamp the pelagic stocks, okay? Because some fishes are using small mesh sizes to catch the young ones. So even before they reproduce, they are caught, they are harvested. So if you have such a case, we are not going to get any sustainable fishery. And so, but I got to know that there are two options. Whether one is to impose 3 month closure and allow them to use the small mesh sizes, but over time you're going to reap the mesh, the benefits. But if you're going to stick to the 1 month closure, then the mesh size should be regulated. The small mesh size they are using should be taken out of the system. That's the only way this 1 month closure can work. In fact, that's the only way we can see clearly the benefits of this 1 month closure in Ghana. But as it stands, I'm sorry, the benefits are not going to be evident for us to see, frankly speaking, because it's not enough. Yes, so mesh size regulation is very important in Ghana. Thank you.
I think this is a follow-up question from Idrisu Amadou.
Okay.
The question is, will you agree traditional management strategies have failed to deliver sustainable fisheries? I'm just reconstructing the question a little bit because it is not very clear to me.
Okay.
But I think it is asking from your answer that do you think traditional management strategies have either failed or succeeded, and if so, why?
Well, I'm glad Idrisu brought this follow-up question. In fact, in my earlier submission, I should have added this. It's just from my experience. I went to the field to gather data just 2 days ago. In fact, I went to my hometown just yesterday. I was from there. And then what I realized is that over there, the water body is intact. They have put in traditional measures. And there are so many, let me say, measures in place. For example, in that water body, they are not allowed to use gill net. They are not allowed to use sea net. But the only net that is used in there is cast net. And for cast net, how much are you going to catch? Unlike the seine, this seine, where you can just sweep an area and then get a lot of fish, okay? And then in terms of pollution, it is prohibited to pollute the banks or the periphery of the water body. And so when you go there, the water looks clean and it is highly productive, okay? So in this regard, I wouldn't say that traditional methods or measures have failed. They are doing so well there, okay? But I'm sure that if the same measures are put in place in other places in Ghana, I think the fisheries will do well, okay? But for 1 day closure that I spoke about, 1 day, it's just 1 day. To me, it doesn't really do much. As that one is widely followed here in Ghana, but I don't see much benefits from it. So it is difficult for me to say that the traditional measures have failed, because Princess Town in Ghana, it is working. It is working there. I mean, the traditional method is working there. So it is not totally. Traditional method or measures are also good.
So in that case, is there a conflict, between the traditional, fisheries management measures by, communities and the policy regulations that you talked about in your talk? Do you see, a tussle between those two sets of, management practices? Do you see also any cooperation between those two in terms of sustainable fisheries in Ghana?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So, to your answer about the effectiveness of the traditional fisheries management systems, I was going to ask, do you also see any conflicts between the traditional fisheries management and the, the more formal, policy-oriented management, scientific management practices?
Frankly speaking, for now, I don't really see. I don't see any conflict here, because the government also gives recognition to traditional measures. Okay, in fact, some of these people in government, they are also traditional people. So they respect the traditions here in Ghana. So even if there is, it is to a lesser extent. The conflict is not so glaring. Yeah.
Yeah, so like many other places, they probably are working together hand in hand, in the pursuit of sustainable fisheries. But there could be a combination of both. Some areas of differences in opinions or priorities, but there could be some areas of agreement and working together. So maybe a good idea to identify some of that, as we go further. I'll move on to the last two questions before you bring it to a close. So the next question is by Arun Tiga. And Arun Tiga is asking, does indigenous knowledge play a role in enhancing sustainable fisheries, since most of the strategies have to involve the local folks? So it's related to the previous discussion in terms of the role of, scientific knowledge, of course, is there, but the role of local knowledge or traditional indigenous knowledge.
Okay, I think it's quite obvious. If you look at the Nhone Lagoon in Princess Town that I spoke about, measures that are put in place. In fact, my intention was to go there and then gather data to help create MPA there. But the kind of system they have in place, it's like the place doesn't really need, in fact, MPA, because it's well protected. They take good care of the water body. So indigenous knowledge is doing so well and can even go to the extent of complementing the efforts of government to manage our fish stocks. Yeah.
Okay, so there are a couple more questions, but I will just ask one last from Dennis Frederick. And the question is, are fishers and other stakeholders understand well the legal instruments in Ghana? And if not, what strategies do you see for them to understand them?
Okay, so, that's a good question. I remember recently scientific and technical committee, we met, and as part of activities to bring ideas together to help revamp our fisheries, it came out clearly that at some point there should be massive education. The legal instruments, okay, what is contained in the legal instrument should be more or less, let me say, the fishers should be educated on that. They should receive education from that aspect. They should know what is in the legal instrument so that they don't flout those rules that are in there. So education, we're advocating that it is something that should be pursued in the fisheries sector of Ghana. Yeah, so it's a very good question, and we are working towards that to make sure that education, there will be constant education. Workshops will be organized, and there will be fora in the fishing communities to educate them on these instruments. Yes.
Is there any reference to small-scale fisheries guidelines, FAO small-scale fisheries guidelines in Ghana, in the work of sustainable fisheries?
I don't think so. I don't really think so, because in Ghana, in fact, on paper, this FAO code of conduct for responsible fisheries or fishing, in fact, we also have that, and on paper we have that, but just that when it comes to practice, that is where the problem lies. And so we want to ensure that whatever we are doing is in line with standards, and FAO is very good at setting standards. So whatever you are doing, in most cases, is in line with FAO stuff. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I think, we'll bring it to an end. There are many more questions, but, maybe, we'll make it available to you if you want to respond to them,
Okay.
as an ongoing discussion. But I, really would like to thank you, Evans, for making this detailed and, providing perspectives on what does sustainable fisheries look like in Ghana. But of course, there is a lot of implications for small fisheries in other places, and also implications for small-scale fisheries in many other places. So I think this discussion continues. But thank you very much, once again, for making the time and presenting and also responding to those numerous questions and engaging in the discussions. And thank you to all the audience that really joined in listening to your talk, but also engaging in asking those interesting and meaningful questions. So thank you once again, everyone. So we would look forward to, and we'll look forward to having most of you in our next webinar talk in August. We don't have a speaker yet, but we will be announcing it very soon, which will be available on our website at www.b2bglobalpartnership.org. So, and we'll be also tweeting about it. So look forward to that as well in August. Okay, once again, thank you very much, everyone, and bye-bye for now.
It's a pleasure. Bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.